Brandon Marshall, welcome to the Big Apple. Evan Ingram, welcome to the Big Apple. $200 million of defensive players. Guys are getting used to being in the Big Apple now. Obviously, the Giants have made a ton of transitions there on the offense and the defense over the last 2 years. Adrian, we got a team here. We got to talk about them. I know, as much as an Eagles fans, you don't want to. Are the Giants the best team in the NFC East?
You know, it's funny. Before the Ronald Darby trade, I would have said yes, the Giants were the best team in the NFC East, but I believe the Darby trade did help the Eagles tremendously. You're shaking your head.
I mean, yes, it helped them, but they're not the best team in the NFC East. I mean, realistically, yes, Eagles are better, but are they better than the Giants? No.
I think so, but we'll get into that when we talk about the Eagles. Now, I'll get into why I think Darby helps everything. That's for the Eagles, because Darby helps everything. It's not just Darby; he helps the entire defensive line, and I'll get into my thought process when we get to the Eagles show. But this is the Giants show. All right, so you know they're kind of sneaking under the radar here because they went 11-5 last year, and people kind of forgot about that. They spent $200 million, as you talked about last year, to buy a defense. They bought a top 10 defense. It's a great defense. The problem is the offense. The offense was 25th. And you'd be kind of surprised by that. At least a lot of people were. Not a great offense at all.
No, you're right, Adrian, that it was a really big surprising thing because normally when you think of the Giants, most people, they think of a good front four who's going to get after the quarterback. Then they're going to think of Eli Manning, who throws a large amount of touchdowns. And realistically, last year is a big regression there for Eli. He had 9 less touchdowns. He had two more interceptions and about 500 yet less yards from 2016 to 2015. It was a big drop off there for Eli.
Yeah. So this offseason, now they try and they go out, they sign Brandon Marshall, they draft Evan Ingram. And, we'll see what kind of progression they get from Paul Perkins heading into his second year. You got Sterling Shepard heading into his second year, although he had that injury already. So what do you think? Is this offense going to improve?
Here's my problem I have, and I also like with the Giants. The Giants have done an outstanding job of giving Eli Manning a lot of weapons around, which is great. The problem is they haven't done a great job at really protecting him. So this is starting, and I've talked about this in the past with the Colts, this is starting to turn into that 7-on-7 team where they're like, hey, let's get a lot of receivers, get a tight end. All right, cool. Oh, yeah, we need offensive linemen. And to be fair, the Giants have drafted a first-round pick there in Eric Flowers, and he's looked nothing like a bust, unfortunately, at left tackle. They have DJ Fluker at the other tackle position. He was another guy who hasn't lived up to his hype. So will the offense improve? Sure, but that's because they were 25th. I don't think they'll be any worse than that.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into the offensive line further when we go position by position. But I do want to get into the defense as well because it is a very, very good unit, and it is the reason why they were 11-5 last year. But it seems like people are sleeping on the defense too. Why do you think that?
Well, I think the big reason people are sleeping on is because Landon Collins had his best year of his career last year, and he's never really even played close to that. Like, a lot of times players will increase, but Landon Collins made a massive jump there. So I think that's a large reason why people are maybe not necessarily are sleeping a little bit on the Giants per se. The defensive line was exactly what we expected. Those 3 corners were exactly what we expected, but Landon Collins was the guy who really took them to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I guess we'll go position by position now. We'll break down the defense even further as we go. So, quarterback, Eli Manning. He's 33 now, I believe. So, this point in his career, I mean, what is he?
Well, Eli Manning would appreciate it if everyone thought he was 33. He's actually 36. So, Eli's not getting younger.
33. Where did I see 33?
Maybe 3 years ago.
Maybe I was thinking of Brandon Marshall. Never mind.
So Eli Manning, 33 years old. In the 3rd round, they went out and drafted 36 years old. See, they went out in the 3rd round and got Davis Webb, a guy out of Cal, who Davis Webb kept telling people, I'm going to be a first-round pick. Well, you weren't a first-round pick. You know who else said he was going to be a first-round pick? Geno Smith, and he also wasn't a first-round pick. So they have two backup quarterbacks that potentially could be the heir apparent to Eli. I'm not really confident in either of them realistically, but hey, I mean, it's not a terrible situation to have as a backup options. So Eli, I think he's obviously on the decline, sure, but he's 36 years old. Like let's not make it sound like, oh, Eli sucks. No, Eli's just getting old. That happens with everyone in the NFL, minus Breeze and Tom Brady. Everyone in the NFL declines. That's fine. But what they're doing there in New York is they're doing a good job at still giving him weapons to help him make more winnable situations around him. I just wish they would do a better job at protecting him.
My question for you is, how good is Paul Perkins? Does he make a jump? I think he's got some jump cutting ability. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle a heavy workload per se, but I think he can be all right.
I mean, I guess. I don't have a lot of faith in him. I think, honestly, my confidence in him is equal to, like, Amir Abdullah there in Detroit. I just don't have a lot of faith in him. Honestly, what the Giants have done is they've pretty much openly said, we don't think we have a bell cow. Most teams in the NFL don't, so that's fine. So then when you look at the rest of the running back depth there, Shane Vereen's still there. Obviously, he was hurt last year, and we all know what he can do out of the backfield. That's really where his skill set is. And then they got Orleans there as a little heavier back. Then they got Wayne Goldman, a guy they drafted in the 4th round there out of Clemson. Goldman's probably going to be a guy who, if he makes the active roster, it'll be because he plays a lot of special teams, and that's why he makes the active roster. But it's realistic that, Wayne Goldman could start the year on the practice squad just because a lot of teams aren't going to carry 3 active running backs into their Sunday rosters.
Last year, ranked 29th in rushing. They move on from Rashad Jennings, and it's funny because the Giants fans were sick of him getting start after start after start. He was I forget what he was averaging at one point last year, but it wasn't good. And they kept trotting him out there. They kept trotting him out there. They wanted Paul Perkins, and then when they actually put Paul Perkins out there, he actually did better. Not much better, but better than what the running back situation was. But we got to remember too. I mean, that offensive line stinks.
100% right, Adrian. I mean, look at the difference. Honestly, if you wrote down on paper the running backs in Washington and the running backs in New York, not really a huge difference in skill set. I probably would rather have the guys in Washington, but I'm not saying that like, oh, these guys are light years better than the guys in New York. But realistically, and you talked about this in our Redskins show, that offensive line is so much freaking better there in Washington. So all those guys' value is way higher than any of the guys in New York.
I'm looking at Eric Flowers, a number right here. So he's already led the team twice in penalties. He's among the league leaders in total backfield disruption since turning pro. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good.
So total backfield disruption is meaning sacks, tackle for losses, quarterback pressures, quarterback hits, pretty much everything negative that you don't want to be named with.
All right, so I'll throw this at you with Ronald Darby because you were kind of shaking your head earlier. This is my thought process with that. So the Eagles last year really, really struggled with the quick 3-step passing game, especially with their cornerbacks. And you got a great defensive line. So if you're getting the ball out in 3 seconds or less, that pressure is not getting to the quarterback. Now you have Ronald Darby. He's really good at jumping that underneath stuff. Jalen Mills is good at jumping that underneath stuff. And now when you play a team like the Giants, if you can take away Beckham, that first read, then that helps you get after the quarterback more and more. And this is something the Eagles have done and gotten after Eli over the last couple of years because the Giants' offensive line can't protect him against the Eagles' defensive line.
Well, the Giants' offensive line hasn't been able to protect Eli, period. I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, the Eagles are kryptonite. No, they just can't protect him, period. They haven't shown a great job there in the offensive line.
And the Eagles just maul them whenever they play each other.
Mm-hmm.
That happens. So that's why the Eagles have made the Giants their bitch over recent years. But that's how it works in the NFC East. Every team has their own bitch. So right now, Washington, that's our bitch. We can't beat them right now. So that's the way it works. Everyone is everyone's bitch.
I mean, I think
There you
honestly, the
go.
NFC East is probably going to be one of the tightest divisions. I think realistically, probably 3 or 4 games is going to separate the first team from the last place team. It's probably going to be the toughest division as far as winning it, or how close it is. Maybe the NFC South, they're in the same boat. I think the NFC South is better teams total than the NFC East. However, it's still going to be very, very tight.
All right. I'll say this about the offensive line. All right. So we're talking shit, right? But I do like Weston Richburg. I think he's a really good center for them. And then Justin Pugh's pretty solid as well. So I'll give him that. I'll give him those two.
Justin Pugh is definitely a very, very good left guard in the NFL. Richburg's another solid, capable starting right guard in the NFL. But when he gets to tackles, it's not awesome. I mean, Flowers,
Oh no.
he was a guy that they drafted in the first round several years ago from Miami. Everyone kind of said, okay, a little bit of a reach here, but the need was real. So I understand why they did it. Then you look over at the right tackle position, have DJ Fluker, who he was a big mauler, had a couple years there in San Diego, I want to say. So he was a guy who always was known more for his ability to be a run blocker than a pass blocker. So for Eli, that's not really awesome. I mean, DJ Fluker spent a lot of his career playing guard for that reason, and now they're asking him to play right tackle, and he's going to compete with Bobby Hart playing the other right tackle spot, a guy out of Florida State from a couple of years ago who hasn't really solidified anything. I mean, he's going into year 3, so year 3 usually is the idea that NFL teams say, hey, we have something here, or no, we don't. So he's a guy who's, I don't want to say he's on the hot seat, but I mean, realistically, both of those tackles are really, really bad there in New York.
Is Fluker listed as the right tackle? I'm trying to look it up on my 15-year-old Dell that's being way too slow, and I can't get to a depth chart, so I can't tell. I don't know. Is he the right tackle? Is he going to be there?
Depending on what you look at, even in the preseason, he played a couple snaps at tackle. He's played a couple snaps at guard. He's probably a better guard in the NFL, but the demand there for New York could easily bump him out to right tackle too.
Gotcha. God, I'm frustrated with my fucking whole laptop situation. I really am, dude. Because normally I do these previews. All I need is a depth chart. That's it. That's all I need to look at. I go on rlads.com. That's all I need, but I can't do it. But yeah, because with him, I know he played a lot of guard at San Diego because he started out as a tackle. He stunk, so they moved him to guard. Still wasn't much better, but he was better. So whatever. All right.
Honestly, I think what would work for the Giants would be if they moved him to right guard and they moved Richburg to center. I think that would be a good situation. I don't think it necessarily means you have a stud now in right guard with Fluker, but I think it's a better option than what you have on the rest of the unit.
Yeah, actually, doesn't he play center, Richburg? I thought he was their center.
Yeah, take the back. He's the center. That's my bad, guys. My fault.
All good. All good. What about wasn't Justin Pugh drafted as a no, actually he was a guard drafted as one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of Brandon. Never mind. My bad. All right, defensive line. So this was an investment that the Giants made in heavily last year. Damon Harrison, Olivier Vernon, but these two had pretty good years for them last year.
Pretty fucking awesome. Great years last year. I think is really what the Eagles fan wants to say here, but won't admit it out loud, especially when you look at Snacks on the inside. Snacks is the best interior lineman in the NFL. At least last year he was. So he had a fantastic year. Olivier Vernon had a really good year too. Now the loss there is they did lose one of their interior linemen there, Jonathan Hankins. He was their other 4-3 tackle, went to Indy. So what did they do? In the second round, they drafted Dalvin Tomlinson, another big boy from Bama. So he gets drafted. And realistically, this is probably the best case scenario for almost any rookie in the NFL to get drafted. He's getting drafted, and he's playing along 3 Pro Bowl level D linemen. And realistically, they're never going to ask him to do anything too complicated because the other 3 guys have to do all the complicated things. This is a dream scenario for a rookie to walk into. I really like this pick for the Giants.
I'm trying to figure out where they were against the run. Okay, I found it. They were tied for third against the run, so my instincts were correct that they are a dominant run defense. And because whenever I watched somebody play the Giants last year, it seemed like they couldn't move the ball forwards in the running game. I mean,
Nope.
you just can't run against that D line.
Nope. You sure can't. I mean, again, Snacks was just unbelievable to be able to dominate the way inside he was there. And then all 8.5 fingers or whatever of Jason Pierre Claw is, he had a good year too.
Jason Pierre-Claude.
All 8 fingers of him, man. I love the fact when someone asked him like, "Hey, are you gonna take a pay cut?" He was like, "No, I'm the best player in the NFL doing it with 8 fingers." Or he said something like that. And I was like, "Good for you, man. Good for you for owning it like that."
And Olivier Vernon, dude, he's really underrated. Now he might not be underrated anymore because he's with the Giants, but he's a guy that can not only get after the quarterback but set the edge in the running game as well. So
Well, he was in a
very well.
similar spot down in Miami. Obviously, Miami's a much smaller market than New York, so that helps a ton to help him keep him under the radar. But he was being able to play with guys like Sue and Wake, both other guys who are Pro Bowlers, very similar to what New York has.
Now, what do you think about the linebackers? Linebackers aren't as great, but you're shaking your
Here's the
head.
thing I will say about the Giants. In their defense, they have always valued the defensive line highly. Secondary,
Yes.
second highest value. Linebackers were third highest value. That's always how it's been since they had LT. Realistically, that's always how the Giants have really been. But you
No.
need to draft a valuable linebacker. You have to draft one. Honestly, I think that Evan Ingram pick was a draft of desire, not a draft of something they obviously needed. Evan Ingram is certainly a guy who's freakishly athletic, and I get it, but I don't know where his touches are going to be. I don't know how overly valuable he's going to be. Now, maybe in 2 or 3 years when Brandon Marshall retires, okay, fine. But realistically, Odell Beckham's still going to be there, and so is Shepard, who's still going to work the middle of the field. So for me, I hated the Evan Ingram pick. Absolutely hated it. I would have much rather, let me give you some of the guys, Adrian, who were on the board there when Evan selected Evan Ingram, okay? All right, so when we're looking there, we had first off, how about Reuben Foster? Okay, if he failed the medical, then obviously that's why the Giants didn't take him, and I'm okay with that. But obviously, we don't know that for sure. I don't know that. You don't know that. 99% of humans walking the face of the earth aren't going to know that. So Reuben Foster would have been a dynamic steal for the Giants to get there. Okay, we know your offensive line sucks. What about Ryan Ramczyk? He was still there. Cam Robinson, he was still there. Now, some of these guys you might need to trade back for, but Forrest Lamp, Deion Dawkins, Taylor Morton, could have traded back to get any of those guys. Hey, while we're talking about trading back, what about a guy like Raheem Millen, guy who looked fantastic until he got hurt in Miami as a middle linebacker? Zach Cunningham, a guy who was in the similar situation. He's looked really good in Houston so far. Hey, we also know that the other safety spot is a little bit up in limbo. So what about getting Buda Baker or Josh Jones from NC State? Realistically, I really hate the Evan Ingram pick because I don't think it does anything to make the Giants a better team. I really don't. And to me, if you're a team who's on the fringe of winning a division and potentially being a Super Bowl contender, why wouldn't you draft someone who's going to help you right away? So I really hated the Evan Ingram pick for New York.
You are spot on about them not drafting a linebacker. So I got a nugget for you. 33 years since the Giants have taken a linebacker in the first round of the NFL draft. It's in 1984.
And you know what, Adrian? It's never been like they've been like signing all these elite level linebackers in free agency. You know, like Antonio Pierce was their dude forever, and realistically, it wasn't like he was someone who they spent $200 million or was part of any of those type of signings.
Yeah. I like Devin Kennard. I'll give them that. He's good, but the rest of them stink at linebacker.
I agree with you, Adrian. He's a good Sam linebacker in the NFL, but I don't think necessarily he's a Pro Bowl level guy. I think he's a solid starter in the NFL, but I think that's kind of his high ceiling.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. All right, let's talk about the defensive backs now. So Janoris Jenkins spent a lot of money on him. That was money well spent. He had a really good year for them. They still have DRC. Eli Apple enters his second year. We talked about Landon Collins just having that crazy year out of nowhere. I guess I'll start with this. Replicate what he did.
I don't see why not. Honestly, I mean, I have no reason to say he can't. It's not like he's a 30-year-old who all of a sudden had it all come on one year like Ron Parker did with the Chiefs, who's a vet. Well, I don't see him being productive again. I have no reason to say why Landon Collins can't be that productive again.
Dude, 125 tackles, 5 interceptions, 4 sacks. He did everything. He was all over the place.
I mean, he
Unbelievable.
was showing up on some MVP votes. Now, he really basically had no chance because, defensive players don't win MVPs really, but he was starting to show his name on a lot of ballots. So he had an unbelievable year. And I think, Adrian, that's really why we saw such a big jump in the Giants defense. Obviously, all the signings helped, and that allowed him to be a lot more aggressive. When you have two corners who both can play at the Pro Bowl caliber, then you have a slot guy, in my opinion. Eli Apple is the best nickel corner in the NFL by far. So that's a great situation when you have three guys right there. That allows you to do a lot more free things.
Giants fans didn't like that Eli Apple pick last year. I remember because who was it that was on the board? Who was the other one that was on the board that everybody wanted? It was Hargraves. Everybody wanted Hargraves, but they picked Apple instead.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. And I will say this. Yeah, I also could argue for why, hey, Eli Apple was a draft pick out of need, not actual, or want, not need, similar to Evan Ingram. But to me, guess what, New York? You've never really valued the tight end position. So why am I supposed to believe you're going to now? So, I love the Eli Apple pick. I thought he was really freaking good. I don't think maybe he was as good as where he got drafted, there for New York. However, he's obviously proven everyone wrong. So how can you say he's anything but a great player? And like I said, I think he's the best nickel in the NFL. So you know what? If DRC finally does kind of take a step back, because I think realistically, he is the guy who will take a step back of the defensive backs there. And if he does, fine. Eli Apple's right there ready to replace him. Quietly, this is probably the third or the fourth best defensive secondary in the NFL.
Yeah, let me see where I got them because I'm sure I have them very high. I love their secondary. I probably have them top 5. I'm pretty sure I do. Because I like Janoris Jenkins a lot. I got him as the top 10 cornerback. Dum diddy dum dum.
I mean, when I'm looking at the group that we have here for the defensive backs, obviously everyone knows about Seattle. Everyone knows about, of course, the Broncos. Both of those are completely fair. Broncos just moved on from T.J. Ward today. So the other one I think is in that group now is obviously the Patriots and then the Giants. I honestly, I don't think there's that much of a drop-off between 1 and 4. But once you get past 4, I think there is a big drop-off. So those 4 teams are elite-level defensive back groups.
You killed it there. So I have number 1, I have Seattle. Number 2, Denver. Number 3, I have New England. Number 4, I have Kansas City, and then 5, I have the Giants.
Yeah, I take the Giants much higher over Kansas City. No question in my mind. Because realistically, yeah, I know they have a great corner in Kansas City. Obviously, Eric Berry is an elite-level safety. But after that, I have no confidence in Ron Parker. I mean, I don't really know exactly off the top of my head who's the stud corner opposite in Kansas City. No, give me the Giants all day in that situation.
All right, let's get into who's on the hot seat.
Anyone who plays offensive line for New York. I mean, honestly, Justin Pugh is the only guy who I think realistically is a certified stud and, isn't going to move on. But everyone else who takes a snap where they put their hand in the dirt in front of Eli Manning, your job's on the line, guys. You got to protect him. Your team is ready to win, and realistically, your team is ready to be a Super Bowl contender. But if you can't block them, nothing matters. It's got to be the entire offensive line.
Yeah, I like that one. The entire offensive line, Eric Flowers in particular, definitely. Yeah, that's your hot seat guy because I got nothing else. Who's underrated in New York?
I think no. I think you said it, Adrian. I think Eli Apple's the guy I talked about. I think Olivier Vernon's another guy who's really underrated. I mean, sure, I could also argue, hey, he's a production by the fact that for the greater part of his career, he played with 2 other Pro Bowl level defensive linemen. That certainly helps his life. But hey, you know what? Ifs and buts, you can't make excuses. All he does is dominate the matchups he's given. So I like him a lot.
All right, I'll go with Devin Kennard. That'll be my little underrated sleeper there. Fantasy guy.
I'm going to go with Sterling Shepard here. And I say that because Shepard had the most touchdowns of any slot receiver in the NFL. And realistically, yeah, you bring in Brandon Marshall, but you know what? Sterling Shepard's still going to play a lot of the slot. Brandon Marshall, the majority of his touchdowns are going to come in the red zone. He's one of the highest targeted guys in the red zone. But between him, Ingram, and Odell, I think those three guys are going to kind of balance out those red zone areas. But the slot is going to be dominated here by Sterling Shepard. Obviously, Odell does play in the slot a good amount too, but I'll still take Sterling Shepard, mostly because I'm able to get him pretty darn late, probably in the same round. You're looking at guys like Cole Beasley or the question mark and Josh Doxson in those late 14th down rounds. Give me Sterling Shepard. I like what I have here.
All right. So where do you have the Giants going? Where do you have them going? I have 9-7, and I have them finishing in second place behind our Philadelphia Eagles. Now you have 11-5.
I'm not gonna talk about where I have them finishing just yet. I want to wait till we do all four of the shows. But I think 11-5 is realistic for the Giants. I mean, realistically, they still haven't really fully addressed the offensive line, which is a concern for me. So for me, those are two big reasons why you're going to lose to the Broncos and the Raiders. Khalil Mack is going to get after you. Von Miller is going to get after you. Now, the Chargers, that was a tough one. I tell you what, if it was in L.A., I would have taken the Chargers. But the fact that the Chargers have to come east, I'll give them that one. Same conversation there in Seattle. But realistically, I very easily could see the Chargers and the Seahawks beating the Giants because they have a very, very good defense. And offensively, they have enough to get by. So I could have seen both of those games. Lions, I think, is a gift. Rams, Niners, and then the fact that you have Kansas City coming to you, that makes it a gift there too. The nice thing is your late game away is at the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals have taken a massive step back. Give me the Giants there heavily. And then, honestly, you look at the rest of the division, I think the Birds are going to get them. I think the Birds are going to get them twice this year, but I still think the Giants are going to have a strong year, finish 11-5.
Boom, there it is. All right, 11-5. I'll say this: they're lucky that they got the Zeke Elliott suspension week 1, so that's definitely a winnable game now. And I think it also helps to have Seattle in the first half of the season because they always sleepwalk through.
I 100% agree with you. Getting Seattle early is much better than getting them late. It does suck, of course, the fact that you have to go there. That does kind of suck, especially when you have a tough stretch there. Look, Cowboys, obviously without Zeke, okay. Lions, okay, I still like the Giants there. But now you get a tough run here at Eagles, at the Bucs, who I think are a lot better this year. And then, of course, you have the Chargers, at the Broncos, Seahawks. That's a tough stretch there for the Giants. So realistically, if the Giants struggle, and let's say the Giants lose 4 of those games, and you're looking at 4 losses going into the bye week, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay because the hard thing is for the Giants, they have a lot of those hard games early, and it's a much more winnable schedule down the stretch. So for New York, that's what you would rather. But what's going to happen is if the Giants struggle early going into that bye week, we're going to see a knee-jerk reaction of, oh my gosh, Eli Manning's terrible. This is not a good team. What's wrong in New York? I think things are going to be okay in the long run. And I said this on one of our previous shows with the Packers, and I wish I would have mentioned it with the Redskins. I got a couple teams here that I think can make a splash trade for our big-name running back. I think the Giants would be a great fit for this guy. I think the Redskins would be a fantastic fit for him. I think the Packers were another good team, and I think the Bucs were another good team. That guy, LeSean McCoy. If the Bills are ready to trade and get draft picks, those are all teams that are all right there as potential divisional winners, maybe even Super Bowl contenders there, especially with teams like the Giants and the Packers. I don't think you're going to get a big asking price. I mean, I think probably a 3rd-round pick and maybe some mid-tier players. I think that's realistically what it would cost to get LeSean McCoy. If you're any of those teams I mentioned, hit the sell button, man. Go get him. I think that would be a great fit for any of those teams, much as Eagles fans hate to hear it.
Well, the Bills are on the clock because the Jets, they made their move yesterday. They traded Sheldon Richardson. So the tankathon, it's in full effect. It's in full swing. Here we go. Enjoy the ride.
Adrian, you're 100% right. That's exactly what they're doing. Both teams are in the same division. They're literally trying to out-tank and out-draft pick each other for next year to see who's able to get the Donald or Allen situation there.
So there you go. All right, this is our Giants preview. One more day of previews tomorrow. Dallas and Philly. Can't wait.
All right, guys. Take care. Looking forward to tomorrow.